Today in Cannabis News, the acting head of the FDA dodges a question on if they believe cannabis is more harmful than tobacco. Bills that provide protections for cannabis sales in Washington, D.C. and cannabis banking are passed by a U.S. House committee, and the United Nations calls for a worldwide restriction on cannabis marketing. It's Monday, June 28th, and this is your TRICHOMES Morning Buzz.
Broadcasting live from the TRICHOMES.com studios in Southern California. It's time for your Morning Buzz. We bring you late-breaking news that keeps you up to date with what's happening in the cannabis industry.
First up, during a session on child vaping conducted by the House Oversight and Reform Economic and Consumer Policy Subcommittee, the Commissioner of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration evaded a lawmaker's query regarding whether cannabis is more hazardous than tobacco products. Representative Andrew Clyde questioned FDA Acting Commissioner Janet Woodcock bluntly during the session. Would you agree that marijuana is a more dangerous product than tobacco? Woodcock responded, I don't know that a direct comparison has been made. Clyde went on to say that within the Controlled Substances Act, cannabis is classified as a Schedule I substance, whereas tobacco items are permitted for adults, saying that, I would assume, based on that fact alone, that marijuana is a much more dangerous product than tobacco. Woodcock continued, well, it depends on the tobacco. I mean, cigarettes are the #1 preventable cause of death in the United States, so when you take that figure into account, the fact that marijuana, cannabis, is a Schedule I drug, it's hard. It's apples and oranges. There's a great deal of mortality and morbidity from cigarette smoking, and that's been well established, they said.
Next up, a U.S. House panel has adopted a sweeping financing measure, which includes terms that shield financial institutions from being penalized for engaging with cannabis firms and enabling Washington, D.C. to legalize cannabis commerce. The banking component isn't as comprehensive as stronger independent proposals approved by the House, but it would nonetheless include some safeguards to banks that serve state-authorized cannabis businesses. The Democratic proposal to allow the District of Columbia to create its own cannabis laws contrasts with President Joe Biden's budget, which supports keeping the enduring Republican-backed rider that prevents the district from utilizing its own funds to oversee recreational cannabis retail. On Tuesday, the full House Appropriations Committee will review the bill in its entirety. The committee described the rider barring municipal D.C. cannabis legislation as an objectionable move that undermines home rule, for which President Biden has previously expressed support.
And last up, the United Nations Drug Department is pushing for a worldwide restriction on cannabis marketing, and some proponents see this as an indication that the agency is now accepting that broad legalization is unavoidable. According to the UN Office on Drugs and Crimes 2021 World Drug Report, opinions of the hazards of cannabis have declined significantly across youth populations as more regions have relaxed or legalized the herb in some manner, and as THC concentrations have climbed. Although business leaders may not agree with the UN's suggestion for an explicit marketing ban, some supporters believe that the UN issuing any form of regulative advice for cannabis is a significant step forward. Proponents say that it shows a change away from the organization's long-standing policy stance that cannabis must strictly remain illegal, with the UN office acknowledging the increasing influence of reform and providing guidance as new legal sectors open up. The UN does not have the ability to impose such a prohibition. Instead, it is merely a policy proposal that member countries might decide to follow or disregard.
That was today's Buzz. Thanks for listening. For more cannabis news and insights from industry professionals and a place to discuss these stories and others, visit TRICHOMES.com.
And be sure to catch up with all of our other cannabis industry-related podcasts like Hash It Out, Careers in Cannabis, or the International Cannabis Conversation wherever you get your podcast. For TRICHOMES.com, I'm David Fortin.
And I'm Devin Liao. Have a great Monday.